Earlier this year, Congress passed something called the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023. The law requires the U.S. government to tell the public what it knows about the countless unidentified flying objects that have been spotted in the skies above Earth over the past 3,000 years. It's designed to be, and it very well could be, a transformative piece of legislation. And it comes at a time when we can finally say with confidence that the most unlikely sounding theories about UFOs are actually true. Yes, these things are real. They're not all weather balloons. They're not experimental aircraft from this or any other country. Whatever they are not of human origin, nor do they behave according to the laws of known physics. And yes, the US government currently has physical evidence that they exist. That means wreckage of the craft as well as the bodies of the beings that flew them. Amazingly, all of this is true. We know that from the detailed testimony, much of it under oath, from several high-level whistleblowers, including longtime intel officers Lou Elizondo and Dave Grush, both of whom we've talked to. But there have been many, about 10 so far. So the question is, now that the UAP Disclosure Act has passed, when can the rest of us see the information that we paid for and in fact own? Well, not so fast, it turns out. One of the great secrets of Washington, known to everyone inside Washington, is that many of the most powerful members of Congress do not work for their constituents, much less for the rest of us, for the country at large. They are instead puppets of the most secretive federal agencies. They are controlled effectively by the permanent bureaucracy, including through bribery and blackmail. Two such members happen to be especially powerful this term. They are Congressman Mike Rogers of Alabama, who is the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, and Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio, who is chairman of the House Intel Committee. Both of these men have been instructed to violate, in letter and in spirit, federal law, and to hide the truth about UFOs from the American public. They're working to do that right now. It is infuriating to watch this. But if you think about it for a second, it's also baffling. Why is this happening? Federal agencies have been lying about UFOs for more than 80 years. This has been a coordinated effort. It is both highly time-consuming and very expensive. Many Americans have been hurt in the process. But why? What's the point of this? Wouldn't it be a lot easier just to release the facts? Now, the conventional explanation for why they haven't been released is that the US government is lying about UFOs because the truth about UFOs is too scary to reveal, that they're real, and our leaders wouldn't want to panic the population. But that's not true. In fact, it's ridiculous. Wouldn't want to terrify the population? Terrifying the population is what our government does best and most avidly. Officials regularly gin up irrational fears about COVID or white supremacy or Vladimir Putin or a dozen other topics as part of a pretty obvious control strategy. It's not like these people mind it scaring you. They want to scare you, and they do it every day. So why would they lie about UFOs? Well, because they're covering up a crime, obviously, and it's their crime. Someday we'll discover what that crime is. But in the meantime, here are a few questions that honest lawmakers ought to be asking. Have government agencies used tax dollars to procure advanced non-human technology? If they have, where exactly is that technology now? Has it been used for profit? How exactly has the American public benefited from that technology? And then this question, the most pressing of all. Has the US government communicated directly with the beings that piloted these craft? Have American officials ever entered into any sort of agreement with them? And if so, what are the terms of that agreement? These are not random questions. They are informed questions. And at this point, Americans have a moral right to know the answers. One member of Congress who might be willing to ask those questions is Congressman Tim Burchett. He's a Republican from Knoxville. Burchett is one of the very few lawmakers in Washington who seems genuinely outraged by the cover-up in progress. Here he is the other day responding to it.
And I was told by leadership that it was blocked by the intelligence community, not the intelligence committee, but the intelligence community. And that is a very chilling effect. If someone can reach through the veil of government and pierce it to the point of we do not have access to something, you got to start asking yourself who the hell's in control. And I think it'd be wise for you all to start looking at some financial disclosures of some of those corporations, some of the people who do the stonewalling in this town. I want you to think about this. Think about this, that something with the capabilities of traveling light years, not showing a heat signature, and the energy capabilities of that would put the Pentagon out of business. We wouldn't be fighting these worthless wars overseas over oil, and American boys and girls wouldn't be dying. It would put the war pigs out of business, and they'd have to go somewhere else, and I'm all for that.
Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee joins us now. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So I think a lot of that clip speaks for itself, but you are saying effectively, as I hear you, if unelected bureaucrats and defense contractors can shut down a federal law, then it's not really a democracy, then is it?
No, it's not. And you're correct. They have been able to do that through their power and influence.
I'm really struck. There is some pushback against this. I think you've been the most visible and by far the most articulate. But there are some people who are bothered by this. But I've heard almost no discussion about why it's happening in the first place. Why the effort, the enormous effort to suborn the members of Congress, the committee chairman I mentioned, and the new Speaker of the House, and the Senate Minority Leader, why? Why go to the effort to hide information that most Americans think they already know and have accepted?
I think it's power, influence, corruption, money, all the things, you know, that run Washington. Our Pentagon just recently failed their 6th audit in a row. They publicly disclosed that over half their assets are unaccounted for. Now, those assets are, you know, their automobiles, their firearms, their, I guess, personnel, everything. 50%. Could you imagine anything else? And yet we've rewarded them with billions more this year for their incredible effort, and they're bragging about how well they're doing now. And so you figure, you know, a compartmentalized department like the Pentagon, who has these untold billion-dollar contracts with our defense contractors who want us in every dadgum war, who want us in Ukraine, who want us in everything, everywhere in the world, and because they'll be selling more missile defense systems and things like that. You imagine that there's probably, I would say, a half a dozen of those top-level contractors and these corporations, multinational, and then we fund them, and we don't know where the money's going, and yet there's cost overruns, and we keep rewarding them with more. So obviously, if they were in possession of some of this material or a craft or what have you, the reverse engineering possibilities would be unlimited, and they don't want to, you know, they can control the ebbs and flows of technology, and they're on the cutting edge of it, and they don't want us out of war because of, and imagine too, as I've stated before, if you had this energy source that didn't show a heat trail that could heat our homes, cool our homes in the summer, heat our homes in the winter, I mean, we'd be out of, the Pentagon will be out of business. I think I called them war pigs, but I meant to say war pimps, I believe is the appropriate term.
I think both fit.
Yeah, I do too. I get a lot of controversy. I had a call from a high-ranking official told me one time that I probably needed to get bodies around me pretty soon after making those statements, and I said, well, I'm in Tennessee. I live in Tennessee. Anybody's out of place there, they'll know it pretty quick. But in all truthfulness, these groups, you know, and they own these politicians, you know, whether through the honeypot or just hiring family members or what have you. And I don't have any firsthand knowledge of that going on with any of those. But that seems to be what's done in the past, and it's all done legally. Most of it is now, and so you've got these situations, and they don't want to change it, and they've got somebody's ear. I had an old-time lobbyist. They called him the Golden Goose when I was in the state legislature. He was the liquor lobbyist, and he'd smoke that big cigar, and he'd say, Burchett, he said, I don't need the governor, I don't need the House, the Senate, I just need one committee chairman. And, you know, and that's the way it works. And unfortunately, we allow it to work when less than 20% of the population goes to the polls.
The stakes in this particular story seem pretty high, since the government has evidence that we're not alone in the universe, that there is some form of intelligent life or something that is creating these crafts. They're buzzing the Earth. We don't know if they're from outer space, if they're spiritual beings. I mean, we just don't know the answer. But the government does know, but they're lying about it because why? And so does it occur that maybe the billions of unaccounted Pentagon funds that you mentioned that turn up in every accounting process, that maybe that they're not lost through incompetence. Maybe those are attached to programs that we're not allowed to know about.
I completely think it's intentional, Tucker. You're exactly right, as usual. They've been lying about it since 1947. And then all of a sudden, we're going to pass legislation, and they're going to say, oh, well, we're going to come out and tell you the truth. I mean, this, Schumer's thing, everybody's on me because I'm not really sure about the Schumer amendment, because it basically is modeled after the Kennedy assassination files, and here we are 60 years later, and we haven't done that. I guess it's a good step forward, but the reality is we're going to tell them to tell us the truth after they've been lying to us, and they've been funding these programs. Lou Elizondo, for instance, the program that he was involved with for the longest period of time, they said it didn't exist, yet he shows up and he's got a department that works for him. And so, this thing has just been going on, like I said, at least since 1947. And we know it's been going on maybe before then at some point. It's a worldwide phenomena. We have some of the best pilots, not in East Tennessee, the best pilots in the world, that are telling me their crafts have been buzzed by this. And I've had members of Congress say, Burchett, we need to be on something important. Well, let me ask you, what's more important than something in our airspace buzzing $50, $60 million aircraft, putting American pilots at risk, and that we don't know who it is or what it is? And then we have a government that claims they don't exist, and now all of a sudden, people like yourself have brought this issue to the forefront. Over half the American public believes that they're out there. And now the Pentagon smells dollars, is what I think it is. That's why they're putting all this out. And each department, NASA and everybody else, has their little pamphlets out now of NASA's, I think it said something about we want to do robust research. Well, you know what robust research means. They want more of your tax dollars. I just want them to come forward with the truthful information that they've been hiding from us for decades.
Do we possess this technology or don't we? And if we do, where is it? And there have been, as noted earlier, a number of pretty ominous indications over the years from apparently informed people that the U.S. government has been in direct contact with these forces, whatever they are, the people who created and flew these objects, whatever they are. But there has been direct dialogue between the U.S. government, maybe other governments, and these entities. Are you aware of that? Has anyone even asked that question to, say, the President of the United States or someone else who could answer it?
I'm aware of it, and I've talked to people about it, but it's just another rabbit hole I go down. And I have to be real careful, Tucker, to be honest with you, because you would not believe the amount of research and things I've gotten poured on me from all over the world. People send me books and photographs and things, and of course, a lot of that is, I think it's fake, because they're trying to get me to embarrass me further, I guess, in this issue, but I'm not biting on all of it. I don't usually put any of it out, actually, just because I don't know if any of if it's truthful, or if it's a government entity putting this garbage out to discredit, this community or what have you. But it's a complete. It shows the mistrust the public has of our government, and for good reason.
Yeah, it's been well earned. So where is this legislation going? I mean, will there be disclosure short term? Will these two committee chairmen, the Speaker of the House, Mitch McConnell, will they shut it down?
Well, the Senate passed it, the amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, but it hasn't been signed into law yet. The House is in negotiations, from what I understand, over this amendment. I'll be talking to the Speaker today or tomorrow about this amendment and just telling him how important it is to this community and transparency. That's really all I want, is transparency. Where we're spending all this money on something, and where's it going? And why do they not trust the American public? Those are the things that people need to ask. You can, as I said at the hearing, I said, we're not going to bring in a UFO, we're not going to bring in little green men, but what we want is transparency. And unfortunately, we don't have much of that in the United States Congress, because look, there's another shiny object over here. They'll misdirect us over here, they'll misdirect us over there. But I believe this community is very, very in tune to what's going on and the cover-up that's been going on.
Yeah. I mean, if this is real, and it clearly is real, I mean, 10 people have come forward with security clearances to say, yes, it's real.
Well, the interesting thing about that was, you said 10, and that kind of jogged my memory. We asked more than 10 people to testify before our committee, and several of them were scared off. They were told by their overlords or whoever at the Pentagon that no, they could not come speak. And then the 3 that we got were dynamite, obviously, because that really lit the fuse. But But there's several more out there, and several more have come forward. And I was sent a text as I was in here getting ready to come on your show from somebody else. But again, I have to be real careful with those because they get up there and embarrass the whole community. Then we're 2 steps back.
No, that's exactly right. And I think they've salted disinformation, lies throughout this story in order to discredit the people who tell it. Last question. You come out with a statement that we played at the beginning of this interview, pretty compelling, kind of hard to see what the counter argument is. What do your fellow members of Congress say to you about that? And what is the excuse that they give you to your face for not disclosing this information to the public?
Well, as I've stated many times, there's several members have come forward to me, some of them fairly prominent in both parties, that have actually seen something as a child or in the military or other things. I think now that their phone lines have been lit up, because the UFO community, if one thing, they are relentless, and they call and they're informed, and they call and some of them actually, they've called my office in support of me, and I always tell them, I appreciate it, but I'm good. Y'all need to get on with your own congressmen or your senators, and so they've made a great effort of that, and I believe now at Congress, even if they don't believe it, they're going to start looking into it because they know this group is well versed, and I'm glad of it because the thing that happened to me was they started this stuff and sure enough I get home and somebody's running a poll against me to figure out my weaknesses, and who do you think's doing that? So and I fully expect this to be an issue on the ballot next time. I mean, me being on the ballot as well. That would be, they're going to be running that against me. But I don't think they're going to get anywhere with it because I think they're still driving around in their 72 Vegas and their blue leisure suits with their zip-up dingo boots listening to an 8-track tape player. I think they're a little bit behind the times right now.
Who do you think? Just I'm interested. Who do you think did that? Who do you think's coming after your seat for your willingness to talk about this?
I think it's probably one of 3 people. I don't know, maybe any of those people that you mentioned, and there's some that there's others too. I mean, you figure they've got unlimited funds, and that's what scares me about the whole thing. They have unlimited funds where they could literally buy a seat in Congress, which I know that'd be naive of me to think that that's never happened in the past. But in Tennessee, we are fairly independent people, and that bothers me a great deal.
Well, it's just interesting, I mean, that they're willing to go to that effort. You'd think they say, oh, Burchett, he's crazy, he believes in UFOs. But they're very threatened by this, which tells you that they've got something to hide that implicates them. That's what I'm learning.
Absolutely. They're threatened because people like Tucker Carlson are adding an air of legitimacy to this thing, and they know that however millions of viewers that you have are watching this, and they're scratching their head, and then they're going home to their barbershops, and some guy who was in the Navy, who was on an aircraft carrier and saw something and was told by when they got back to port that some men in some suits said, "Hey, you didn't see anything. This is national security. You ever bring this up, you're going to the federal penitentiary and break rocks for the rest of your life." Those stories are coming out daily, and it's happening more and more. And so I think they're taking a step back now.
Well, I appreciate your bravery very much, Congressman Tim Burchett of Knoxville, Tennessee. Great to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tucker. It's been a great honor. Thank you, brother.